When it comes to talking about natural disasters, there's no shortage of doomsday predictions. Volcanoes are perhaps the most popular candidates for apocalyptic speculation. It seems like every month some new story pops up about an imminent super eruption that will end all life on Earth. Yellowstone National Park is home to one of the world's largest and most active volcanic systems. But what really makes it so special? And should we be worried about its future eruptions? Hi, it's me and this is Crash Course Geography. Yellowstone is located in the northwest corner of the United States, straddling the border between Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. Its most well-known features are its geothermal wonders like geysers and hot springs, and by far its most famous is Old Faithful, which erupts every 90 minutes or so. But while these sites are amazing to behold, they're not what make Yellowstone so geologically special. That distinction belongs to the Yellowstone caldera, more commonly known simply as the Yellowstone Supervolcano. Yellowstone is the site of 3 super eruptions in the past 2 million years. These events blew between 2,400 and 2,800 cubic miles of ash, pumice and rock into the atmosphere, covering much of the western United States and Canada with up to 60 inches of debris. In comparison, the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia, which caused one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history, blew 35 cubic miles of material into the air. So if you can wrap your mind around the truly staggering scale of a super eruption, you still have to multiply that number by at least 100 to get close to the kind of devastation that a supervolcanic eruption at Yellowstone could cause. But how likely is it that something like that will happen any day soon? Well, it turns out a lot more likely than you might think. There have been many smaller eruptions within the caldera just since the year 10,000. And today, the area is home to hundreds of active geysers and hot springs. It's also the site of thousands of earthquakes each year. Most of these rumblings go unnoticed. But in recent years, the park has experienced several swarm earthquakes, meaning lots of quakes in a short period of time. The largest swarm happened in 1985, and 3,000 earthquakes were recorded in just 3 months. While scientists were able to predict the general location of where these quakes would happen, they couldn't tell exactly when or how strong each one would be. And unfortunately, there's not much we can do to prepare for earthquakes other than building structures that can withstand them, which isn't always possible. As you may have heard before, earthquakes can trigger volcanic activity, so could this mean that we're due for another super eruption? Well, in a way, yes. Scientists estimate that the magma chamber beneath Yellowstone refills with molten rock roughly every 640,000 years. And our current supply has been replenishing since about 630,000 years ago. This means that the system is technically overdue for another massive blast, but don't start stocking up on canned foods just yet. While geologists use this estimate to help them understand the long-term behavior of the volcano, it's just a guess based on the evidence. They can look at predicting when an eruption will happen is tricky business, and no one can say for sure when it will happen again. And it's important to remember that the time between eruptions doesn't necessarily follow this pattern. In fact, if this rule were true, we'd expect the first eruption of this cycle to happen around 127,000 years ago. But we know that the first eruption actually happened 640,000 years ago. It's also worth noting that while the last 3 eruptions were super eruptions, we have no evidence that the next one will be. For now, scientists monitoring the park have found no indication that the seismic activity under the caldera will escalate into another supervolcanic eruption. And even if it did, it wouldn't be the first time humans were around to witness such an event. Humans have been living near the Yellowstone Supervolcano for at least 11,500 years. Some researchers even believe that the cataclysmic nature of the eruptions helped to shape human culture, pointing to indigenous oral histories of massive fires and environmental upheaval following the most recent supereruption around 640,000 years ago. The Yellowstone eruptions are even thought to have influenced the course of North America's most famous Ice Age migration. As for those who lived around Yellowstone during the last glacial maximum about 20,000 years ago, it's believed that they migrated south into what is today the Great Basin region after the megaflood that accompanied the ice sheet melt. As the climate warmed and conditions became more favorable for plant life, people moved back north, repopulating the land with the help of the crops they had domesticated in the south. Today, millions of people live within the area that would be affected by another super eruption at Yellowstone, including parts of 7 states and the Canadian province of British Columbia. But in spite of the risk they face, very few people have chosen to leave. If you've ever driven through the park, you probably noticed that it doesn't feel particularly dangerous. While the ground may rumble beneath you and hot steam may fill your nostrils, the only immediate dangers are cars, bison, and bears, not rivers of molten rock. But why does Yellowstone not feel as dangerous as it is? One reason is that it's located in such an unlikely place. When you think of volcanoes, you probably imagine tall mountains with conical peaks. But Yellowstone's magma chamber is located mostly below the flattest state in the country. To reach the surface, the lava needs to travel through at least 20 miles of solid rock, which cools the magma and creates a layer of solid rock called a plug. This plug makes it extremely difficult for magma to reach the surface, and without that direct path, a lava lake cannot form. Instead, the pressure created by the magma heats groundwater, creating steam and causing it to violently erupt from openings in the rock. These openings are sometimes sealed by a thin layer of solid rock, and when they become full of water, the pressure builds until the whole thing blows up. If you've seen Old Faithful, you've seen one of these types of eruptions in action. But while these geysers and hot springs are cool to see, they're actually signs of instability in the caldera. Because the area is so flat, any movement of the magma chamber can affect the distribution of heat throughout the region. It's like poking a blanket on a hot summer day. A small change can have big consequences. And in Yellowstone's case, those consequences can include the collapse of the caldera floor. Between 1785 and 1786, the caldera floor dropped nearly 25 feet and raised another 36 feet between 1985 and 2016. Even minor changes in elevation can lead to significant changes in temperature, altering where plants can grow and influencing the types of animals that live in the park. These shifts can also trigger earthquakes and contribute to volcanic unrest, all of which scientists monitor closely for clues about the future of the caldera. Geologists have several tools for studying what's happening beneath the surface. Seismometers detect earthquakes and can identify the size and location of a magma chamber. Measuring changes in the elevation of the ground can tell us how the magma is moving. And by measuring the chemical composition of everything from the soil to the steam coming off the vents, scientists can piece together what kinds of eruptions we can expect in the future. They've even enlisted the help of local citizens, inviting high school students to help collect data and analyze results. With all these resources, scientists can paint a picture of what's happening deep underground, and while they can't say exactly what the future holds, they can tell us what to watch out for. For example, if we started to notice more shallow earthquakes along with rising temperatures and changes in the frequency of eruptions, that could be a sign that a super eruption was imminent. Right now, however, none of these signs have appeared. So the biggest danger posed by Yellowstone isn't that it might blow tomorrow, but rather that its next eruption might come thousands of years sooner than we expect. Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course Geography, which was filmed at a studio and made in partnership with a digital studio and nature. You want to help keep Crash Course free for everyone forever? You can join our community on a crowdfunding platform.